It all started with small things that at first seemed random and not worth paying attention to. Elaine's husband, Arthur, had always been an open person. He never hid his phone from her, and their family was built on a foundation of trust. But a few weeks ago, she began to notice a change. In the evenings, he became tense and withdrawn, and most strangely, he started spending long periods locked in the bedroom late at night. At first, Helen brushed it off as exhausting. He worked a lot. It could be stress from his job, a need to be alone. Anything was cerebral. But soon, her husband's new habit began to repeat with frightening regularity. Every night, at exactly 2 часа ночи, Arthur would get out of bed, take his phone, and lock himself in the bedroom. He would stay in there for 40 minutes, sometimes even longer. Helen would lie in bed, listening to the silence of the apartment, feeling her heart fill with anxiety. What unsettled her most was that when he returned, he always tried to act as if nothing had happened. He would lie down beside her, put his arm round her shoulders, and howl her asleep as peacefully as if he had no secrets to hide. But it was precisely this calmness that frightened her the most. It seemed far too natural. One night, Helen was woken by a faint light. Arthur was sitting on the edge of the bed, clutching his phone. The shrines glow reflected on his face, and his expression was so focused and tense that a chill ran down her spine. But when he noticed her looking, he quickly smiled, put the phone in his pocket, and said, "Go back to sleep. Everything is fine, it's just her." Then he went into the bedroom, closing the door firmly behind him. From that moment on, her suspicions only grew. Helen started noticing every little detail. He always took his phone with him, even into the shower. He set a password, though he had never set one before. At the same time, his messaging app seemed to be completely empty. Not a single SHA, not a single message. It was as if he were deliberately wiping everything clean. Helen tried to reassure herself, telling herself that maybe he was planning a surprise for her, or perhaps he had problems at work that he didn't want to discuss. But a man's intuition gave her no peace. Her heart knew this wasn't about work or a gift. Behind the bedroom door, something was happening at night that Arthur desperately wanted to keep from her. Then, one night, Helen lay awake, listening to the sounds from the other side of the wall. Through the hum of the ventilation fan, she thought she heard a muffled whisper. She couldn't make out the words, but she was certain her husband was talking to someone. It was then that the feeling became concrete. The truth was hidden very deep, and sooner or later, she would have to uncover it. The apartment was completely silent. The clock on the wall showed 1:30 in the morning when Helen heard Arthur carefully get out of bed. She finished sleep. It was happening again, right on schedule. Her husband, trying not to wake her, silently put on his robe, picked up his phone, and went into the hallway. The bedroom lock clicked. Helen lay with her eyes wide open. Her heart was pounding so hard she was afraid he would hear it through the bedroom door. This time, she decided she had to find out what he was doing in there. Cautiously, on bare feet, she crept into the hallway and stopped at the bedroom door. A faint light from the behind screen seeped through the crack at the bottom. She pressed her ear to the cold wood and almost immediately heard muffled sounds. It was Arthur's voice. He was speaking in a whisper. The phrases were fragmented, but the main thing was clear. He was talking to someone. The woman held her breath. She managed to catch a few words. Yes, I transfer it Mara. And something else that blended into an unintelligible whisper. With every passing second, a sense of fear and jealousy grew inside Helen. Her first thought was, I am her. Why else would he hide? Why wear the cowls only at night? Why the mysterious stone? But another thought quickly flashed through her mind. Maybe it wasn't a woman. Maybe he was involved in something dark, something she was better off not knowing. She stood by the door as he spoke, not daring to knock or enter. Two feelings fought within her chest. A burning desire to find out everything right now, and a primal fear of hearing a truth that could destroy her life. When Arthur finished his conversation, Helen managed to slip back into the bedroom and pretend to be asleep. Her husband returned, lay down beside her as if nothing had happened, and fell asleep rather quickly. But Helen lay awake until morning with her eyes wide open, realizing one thing: she couldn't stay silent any longer. She had to do something. The morning felt heavy. Arthur acted as usual. He made coffee, kissed Helen, and left for work. It almost seemed as if the late-night conversations were just a figment of her imagination, but Helen knew she wasn't going crazy. She had heard each whisper, and now she needed proof. Immediately after he left, she picked up her husband's phone, which he had carelessly left on the kitchen table. Her heart was pounding so hard that her hands trembled. She opened each messaging apps and was overcome with even greater confusion. There was nothing there. Absolutely nothing. Not a single shot, not a single message, as if the phone was only set for calls. She checked the call log. That was also empty. The last entries were from a week ago. Arthur was clearly deleting everything meticulously after each night. It was like a knife to the heart. If he was hiding it so carefully, it meant he was afraid of her finding out. Helen put the phone back down and sat at the table, covering her face with her hands. She was hurt by the thought that her husband, the man she had trusted her entire life, was leading a double life. But at the same time, she sensed that the truth was even worse than she imagined. She walked around in a fog all day and decided that next time she would be prepared. Just watching was not enough. She had to be able to record what he was hiding. By that night, a plan had formed in her mind. She would hide a voice recorder by the bedroom door. It was the only way she could find out who was calling Arthur and what they were talking about. Helen prepared for the night as if she were embarking on a secret mission. As soon as Arthur fell asleep, she retrieved an old voice recorder from her closet, one she had since her university lectures. She checked the batteries, turned on the recording, and carefully, almost silently, placed the device by the bedroom door, covering it with the bed mat. Her heart hammered so loudly that it seemed her husband would wake from the sound of her footsteps, but he slept peacefully, unaware that this time, which secret was about to be exposed. At 2 часа ночи, just like always, Arthur got up from the bed, took his phone, and went into the bedroom. The lock clicked. Helen, pretending to be asleep, waited for the door to close, and then, with a sinking heart, she began to count the minutes. Every second stretched on for an eternity. Through the silence, all she could hear was the steady hum of the ventilation fan and a barely audible whisper. 40 minutes later, Arthur returned to the bedroom. As usual, he lay down next to her, put his arm over her shoulder, and quickly fell asleep. But Helen couldn't close her eyes now. Her thoughts were consumed by what the recorder might have captured. She lay there, feeling the device under her pillow, as if it were a weapon capable of turning her life upside down. Morning came painfully slowly. When her husband left for work, Helen finally turned on the recording. The first few minutes were garbled noise, breathing, fragments of phrases. But then, she heard Arthur's voice clearly. Yes, the amount is too large. I transfer it in parts. No one must find out. In response, a male voice could be heard. Hurry up. We don't have much time. You're counting on you. Elaine's hair stood on end. This isn't a mistress, this ringed friendly chits. They were talking about money, about transfers, about some people on whom her husband depended. With every word, her blood ran cold. She understood that what he was hiding was far more terrifying than an affair. The recording cut off mid-sentence. Helen switched off the recorder, and only one thought caught in her head. She was living with a man she didn't know at all. All day, Helen was not herself. Her thoughts were a jumble, her heart hammered with anxiety. She tried to figure out what to do. Should she stay silent, pretend she knew nothing, or confront Arthur directly? But every memory of the voice on the recording, every word of "no one must find out," ate at her from the inside. That evening, when her husband came home, she greeted him in silence. She watched as he took off his jacket, sat down his back, and smiled his usual, tired smile at her. In that moment, it became especially difficult for her, because this man was her everything. But the truth could no longer be hidden. Arthur, she said quietly, once they were alone. I know you've been locking yourself in the bedroom at night and talking to someone. I heard the recording. Explain to me what's going on. Her husband froze, which is ich prison changing. For a second, panic flashed in his eyes, but then he sank onto a chair, ran a hand over his face, and sighed heavily. I didn't want to drag you into this, Helen, he said, with his voice weary. It's not a woman. It's people I got involved with. I owe them a lot of money. He left me no choice. If I don't meet their terms, ye be in danger. Helen felt the ground give way beneath her. Everything she had suspected was true, but in an even darker form. This wasn't a betrayal of love, but a betrayal of trust that ran much deeper. She looked at her husband and understood that he had been trying to protect her. But in doing so, he had dragged their family into a deadly game. Now they were standing on the edge, and they had to decide what to do next. That night, Helen sought sleep. She sat by the window, listening to the silence, thinking about how her life had changed forever. She was faced with a choice: either help her husband get out of this dark mess or live to save herself. But one thing was clear: the truth was out, and there was no going back.